ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, then of course check out the videos that you see on my channel page, and if you like what you see, then of course subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click on the bell notification button to be updated every time I post a new video. And if you're a returning viewer, then thank you so much for coming back. As you guys can see, today we are going to be talking about a very important and serious topic, that is the topic of law exams. So you have, let's say, about 1 month to exams, and you are realizing that, oh my goodness, I don't know how to prepare for these law exams, especially if this is your first time writing law exams. It might be challenging, it might be stressful, it might be scary, you don't know what to expect, you don't know how to prepare. So that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about in this video, what exactly you have to have in place before a law exam. The very first thing that I would like to talk about is notes. Yes, notes are very, very important. So once you start going for lectures, of course, you're going to have your lecture notes, and then with time, you're also supposed to develop your own personal study notes. So these are notes that you make from the cases that you've read, from the textbooks that you've read. Sometimes you also have to add your own lecture notes to your personal study notes for better understanding of the cases, of the textbooks, of the material in general. So basically, you have two sets of notes. You have your personal study notes, and then you have your class/lecture/tutorial notes, because you have also notes sometimes that you can take during tutorials, right? Now, when the exam period is approaching, so usually about 1 month to the exam, you have to be very, very meticulous and careful about your notes. So first of all, you have to make sure that you have covered as many topics as possible. And I mean as many topics as possible for every course. What do? You have to take your personal notes, your lecture notes, combine them and create something that we call exam notes. Now, just keep in mind that this is a method that I personally developed. I know a lot of people also go by it. It's worked for me. So I'm not saying that you 100% succeed if you go by this method, but it is quite effective. I can say that, even though it might not be beneficial for everyone. So just keep this in mind. Now, the difference between your exam notes and your personal notes or your lecture notes is that your exam notes will basically combine everything. So they'll combine every note that you took during tutorials, every note that you took during lectures, every note that you took in your personal notes. And also, usually, not for everyone, but usually exam notes are very concise. This is the set of notes that you basically use to prepare for the exam. So it has every information in it. It's so much easier when you know that all your cases, all your principles, all your concepts are in one place. So that is the purpose of your exam notes. It's just easier to navigate as compared to your personal notes, for example, which can be very lengthy, because your personal notes is just when you take a case and you are briefing a case and you're writing your explanations to a case, you are reading a textbook and then you are making notes on the textbook. So they can be really, really long. But once you understand that material, then you can transfer it into your exam notes and write it in your own words in a very short and concise manner, which will make it easier for you to study for the exam. And I suggest that you have a set of exam notes for every course. So you have exam notes for contracts, you have exam notes for constitutional law, you have exam notes for Ghana legal system, etc., etc. It just makes it easier. And you have to make sure that you include everything that you've learned in class, everything that is in your personal notes, and everything that is in your tutorial notes in each of this set of exam notes. Now, it is very common for law students to be referring to an older student's notes, whether it's an older student's exam notes, class notes, personal notes, whatever. I personally don't recommend this. An amazing set of notes prepared by someone else is no better than an inferior set of notes that is prepared by you. The thing is that when someone makes their notes, and this is something that you realize when you start making your own notes, you usually make the notes for yourself. And the manner in which you structure your notes, it can be very haphazard. It can be in table form, graph form, it can be in shorthand, it can be in basically any form possible. But the thing is that it is tailored to you. So maybe for someone, it's easier to understand very lengthy notes. For someone, they like it in shorthand, they like it concise. So when you take an older student's notes, the probability that you would be able to navigate easily through them is very minimal. I'm not saying you can't refer to an older student's notes. You can tailor your notes based on someone else's notes, but always customize it to suit you. At first glance, you might think that, oh yes, you can use an older student's notes, why not? But trust me, if you tailor it to you, you'll realize how much easier and how much better understanding you get when you actually make it to suit you, rather than just relying entirely on someone else's notes. The next thing I want to talk about is past questions. The reality is that when exams are approaching, you should already have solved some tutorial questions, both essay questions and problem questions. But when it comes to past questions, it is recommended to start solving past questions about 2 weeks to the exam. This is first of all for it to stick better so that your memory of it will be fresh, and also because it's best to solve past questions when you already have most of the information. If you start solving past questions earlier along the line, you might not be able to solve them because you are still trying to get a grasp of the course. If you decide to solve past questions beforehand, so let's say 2 months to the exam, right? Most of the time, you are not yet conversant with the course. So let's say it's contract law, for example. If you try to solve contract law past questions 2 months to the exam, you'll probably not yet be conversant with the course to be able to solve the questions. So it's either that you'll be solving them incorrectly or you just would not be able to solve them. So you have to be as familiar with the information and the material as possible before you start solving past questions. And usually 2-3 weeks before the exam, you more or less get the hang of what is going on, right? You more or less get the cases and under which topics they fall under. You more or less understand the principles. You more or less have the areas of law categorized in your head. So that just makes it easier for you. I also recommend that when you are solving past questions, you do it in a written format. So you can actually write out the question on your laptop, or you can write it out in a book, or you can literally write like the appropriate cases and principles in the past questions book itself, if you have the hard copy, of course. Now let's talk about remembering information. I have received so many messages from people telling me that they can't remember cases, they can't remember principles, like they have a problem with their memory and the exam is coming and they don't know what to do, they don't know how they're going to remember all of this information. Now, the exam notes that I've already spoken about is of course one of the best ways because it makes it easier to revise what you've taken down, and it makes it easier to remember because everything is organized per your standard, right? So we have that. There are other techniques that you can also come up with in order to remember cases, case names, principles, statutes, constitutional provisions, and all of those things. So let me just give you a couple of techniques which could or could not work for you. Sometimes you would have to develop your own technique based on you, but you could also try out these techniques. So first and foremost, you can use the technique of associations. And this is associating, for example, a case name with something that is very important in a case. So if let's say the case is Fisher and Bell, the very important thing that stands out in that case is a knife, right? A knife which was displayed in a shop window. So if, for example, you make a table for contract law cases, where you put the case name and just a phrase or a word that reminds you of the facts in those cases, already you'll be able to remember it faster. Once you remember the facts, usually the principle also comes. Or you can also put keywords concerning the principle so that you also remember it. If you are more of a verbal person, having a study group or participating actively in tutorials is very helpful for information to stick. Usually what happens in study groups and in tutorials is you are called, right? Or you are asked to, for example, give the facts of a particular case and a principle, or help in solving a tutorial question or a past question or something of that nature. And when you discuss a case, when you discuss a principle, when you discuss the application of a principle with a lecturer or a friend or a mate, it just makes it easier for that information to stay with you, because you remember it better and you will understand it better. Another thing that you could also do is teach a friend. So sit down, try to understand a particular topic as best as possible with the cases and everything attached, and then try explaining it to a friend in your own words. Always try your best to understand the material. Most of the law courses are relatable. They are things that happen in our everyday lives or things that can generally happen in people's lives. So it's not something that is very, very abstract, but it's usually practical. So try as much as possible to talk about law materials with your friends, sometimes even with your family members. If you are home, call your sister, call your brother, call your cousin, sit them down and say, today I'm going to be talking to you about offer and acceptance. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the law of torts, negligence in the law of torts, or battery, or assault, or whatever the case may be. And then you explain to them and see whether they will understand it or not. And you're also going to be testing yourself. Can you explain this topic in your own words? The next point is also something that I've realized a lot of people just don't care about, which is something I don't understand, because it's so important. And this point is just that make sure that you sleep and make sure that you eat. That is during the exam prep period and right before the exam. The truth is that you can study like everything. You can study everything. In your opinion, it will be perfect and all of that. But if you go for an exam exhausted, mentally stressed, hungry, or whatever it is, it can happen that your brain will just fail you. You might not be able to remember certain things that you should remember. You might not be able to write adequately. The English might not be coming. So many things could happen. So you have to make sure that you take care of yourself. This period is very critical. You understand? Like, this is a very stressful time. A lot of law students go through stress when it's getting to exam period. That is perfectly normal. So dedicate your time to sleeping, eating, studying, and maybe spend less time having fun, and just talking or doing unnecessary things. But sleep and food, you guys should not underestimate it all. The next thing also has to do with your mind. So you have to prepare yourself mentally for the exam. What I mean by this is that you have to find out how long the exam will take and what conditions you're going to be writing the exam under. So if it's online, for example, you have to know that, okay, this is where I'm going to be doing the exam, at this desk or on my bed or wherever it is. The exam is going to take this long. If it's an in-person exam, you also have to prepare yourself. What are the conditions going to be like? How long is it going to be? Are you prepared to sit for 3 hours and to write and all of that? Just be prepared. So we've come to the end of this video, and I hope that what I stated in this video was beneficial and helpful to you. And I wish you all the best in your studies and in your exams. You can leave a comment below asking me any question whatsoever about what I spoke about in this video or what I spoke about in another video. And you can also give me recommendations on what you would like me to film in my next video. I'll see you in another video. Bye!